You're getting ready to see me do a real-time motor control, balance, and stability session with Lee. My goal for Lee here is to demonstrate to him that I'm not concerned about his mobility. He actually passed ankle mobility, but when we went to balance on that right and left leg, there's a big difference. He just wants to move better, and I want him to realize how big a left-right difference we're working with. I want you to witness the struggle. I don't give him the answer to the test. I make him work through it, and very often when we're coaching exercise, we're so worried about technique of a skill exercise that we forget most of what I'm coaching in correctives is the fundamental mobility and stability that 4-year-olds have. So it's on the hard drive. I just got to get it out into the body, and sometimes slowing down and creating that awareness and that breathing helps. I need Lee to know you're on a path that's going to challenge your stability, and if we do it right, we should have a measurable outcome at the end of this path. That's what we're going for. I'm going to be coaching Lee right now because Lee did actually well on ankle mobility, but when we got him on balance and motor control, we saw an asymmetry, okay? Doesn't matter why. His initial corrective session is more about what he becomes aware of and less about me issuing sets and reps right now. So Lee, we're going to get your dosage, and I'm going to run you through 3 different stations just on that foam roll. Now, the very first one, I want you to lay across that roll so it's supported, your whole back, your spine and your head is on that, facing that way. Okay? Now, it's really important when we have a foam roll like this to realize most people will lay down and their full spine won't touch the foam roll. And it's okay if the back of your neck right here doesn't touch the foam roll, but the part of your back that's right under my marker here, that's gotta be on the roll. So every vertebrae needs to be sort of on that roll. Now, once you've done that, Lee, you've got a good support right here with your arms, and just in that position is perfect. Bring your legs up, but keep that low back flat. Sometimes that is the awareness people have to get. And let's say, Lee, you couldn't do this. If I lift my legs, I can't keep my low back flat. All right? All right. Are you aware of that?
Yep.
Then this station has served its purpose. He can't even lay back flat on the roll. But if you can, Lee, what I want you to do is just sort of play with your limits of stability. That means let your knees windshield wiper, but don't let your upper body or head or neck respond. Let your body become the anchor and let your legs just float left and right. There is no right answer here. Whether you can go 6 inches or 2 inches or all the way to the floor, it doesn't matter. Are you symmetrical? Is it fatiguing you? And is your back coming off the roll?
Yeah.
Nice job. All right, do you feel pretty level or equal going left and right?
Yeah.
Okay, the first thing I want to do is take your hands and move them like the hands of a clock. And we use this position because this is arms in a different position. This is a completely different T-spine task. And now when you rock back and forth, things may change. When his arms were out to the side, if you rock back and forth and feel a difference, that's a very, very obvious difference. But sometimes we get subtle differences. So once you've gone left and right a few times with your arms, switch the position. So just move the clock face the other way. This hand's up, that hand's down. Does the clock face change the way that you can go left and right?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Much harder here.
So even though we know that from a past history, you've got a hip thing, you're actually seeing a T-spine counter to it as well. So I'm talking to Lee, not necessarily telling him how to do this move, but just letting him become aware, because when we come full circle back to this move, if your breathing or your control has gotten better, you'll be aware of it right here. You know exactly how this feels now, left and right. Now, I also want you to explore your stride. So we just got through looking at the upper body part of this thing. Let's look at the lower body part. So take that hand right there and grab that knee. Now you're gonna help yourself keep that low back flat, and I want you to get as long as you can from that big toe to that index finger right there. Really get long, but balance is still a responsibility. And when you get as long as you can, let that knee bend just a little bit and kiss the floor so you'll know how far from the floor you are on each side. Come back to that position and do it about twice, and then I'm going to get you to switch sides. Take your time doing it, but explore your stride. You just explored sort of your wobble or your windshield wiper, and explore that stride. I honestly think sometimes we go so quick into exercise after screening with people that they never have a chance to become aware or embrace the thing we're working on, and they're always asking, well, does it look better? Did it change? He's going to know because I'm giving him plenty of time to be aware of it. Screens and tests and measurements help us keep up with the objective data. but the way it makes him feel, and if he can actually feel himself getting better and we can measure it, that's a double confirmation that we're asking both a verbal and nonverbal question and we're getting better continuity about movement. And after doing this for as long as we have, a lot of times people's biggest problem with movement is the awareness of what they can and can't do. And I think that has just as much to do with injury risk as anything else. They get into exercises and situations in life that they don't have the mobility and stability to cover. Cool. Now come on up from there, Lee. Now, in your awareness drill, between your wobbles and moving the clock face and doing your strides, what's your difference? What do you got?
I got a significant difference. Kind of controlling going to the right.
Control going to the right. How about legs going down? Does one leg go down?
Yeah, that's a little harder with my right leg going down.
Okay, well, as long as you know that, you've sort of got a mental note of that, we're basically gonna go, and I'm gonna get you to put your knee up far on this roll and let your foot just drift to the inside. So that flat lower leg on that foam roll should be comfortable, and just move your knee till it's in a comfortable position. The one thing I want you to remember when you set up is never put the foot to the outside and never try to balance it on the roll. This is unnecessary. That little bit, most of the weight's gonna be on the knee, and this is a much more anatomically correct position to do that, okay? Now what I'm gonna get you to do, Lee, is just stick your leg straight out behind you and be as long as you can from the top of your head to your foot. Now bring that foot up and take as big a bite out of your step as you can, and now go up into a vertical spine and reach for the ceiling and be as tall as you can there. Good. And now I'm gonna have you go back, hands on the ground before you move the foot. Now move the foot and reach back. Once you can do that position, going from a horizontal to a vertical, I want you to explore the extremes. So when you come up this time, go ahead into that slide and really get onto that ankle. This heel stays down and you open up that hip. Come back upright, put the hands on the ground, and now as you reach back, keep on going. Keep on going and be as long as you can. Always explore the compact range first and then stretch it out. Now, Lee, I'm gonna tell you one other thing. When you're going down and back, let all that air out. And if you can keep that air out until you're headed back up into a vertical position, that's when I want you to inhale. That inhale sort of creates that intra-abdominal brace and actually just helps us fill our lungs and use our diaphragm to actually be a secondary stabilizer, and sometimes syncing that breath with emotion is all it takes. So once you've got a few cycles and you see maybe how your breath can advantage you right there, I want you to switch to the other side, do the compact motion first, and then open it on up. Exploring those end ranges or limits are where you may have an appreciation, but the second appreciation is how much does syncing my breath help it, and usually on your stiffest side or least mobile side is where you're probably not syncing your breath as well as you could. One other thing. A lot of these programs look like we're doing a lot of mobility and stability, and a lot of people get confused, but a control issue sent Lee here, not a mobility issue, even though it looks like we're doing mobility. A functional path or a functional exercise is named by what it produces on a test, not by what it looks like in reference to exercise. And so as we start correcting movement, and we've been doing this for a while, we realize leveraging an experience like this is very, very important. Now, Lee's been syncing his breath, he's been going through the extreme motion, and we're gonna get him to go into a basic stepping pattern. So Lee, I'm gonna have you square up on the roll and turn around and face this way, both knees on the roll, and a little bit more narrow if possible, almost in your standing stance. So if you just come up and you wanna bring those knees in even a little bit longer, a little bit more. Now, I'm gonna have you in one motion try to pick up your right leg and step across the roll and then put it back once you've achieved balance stepping across. So just step across and go back. Good. Other side. And go back. Now, sync your breathing with it and see if that makes a difference. Inhale as you're stepping, exhale as you're returning. Now, once you've done that, I want you to take your hands and put them up for no other reason than to make yourself be more vertical. And look at all this weight I put up above his head. His center of mass just went up. Gonna challenge his balance a little bit more, but I think he can cover it. If he can't, we just became aware of something. See if your breath can help it. A lot of people, when those hands go above their head, they start holding their breath. They're apical breathers, and you just took away a lot of what they're doing. This is a good teaching point for somebody who gets worse with their hands above their head. Other than the extra weight being above your head, it may change the way you're breathing. Now, let's get real functionally. When you go to stride or step, which arm would it feel better to throw? If you're gonna step with this leg, which arm do you want? Good, do that, but here's what I want you to do. Don't just lift this one, extend this one. So really get into that oppositional pattern. And once again, exhale on the step, inhale on the return. You don't have to exaggerate those arms, but watch how sometimes just the breath in that upper body complementary pattern really make this work. And don't rush it now. That same pattern, but you could do it super slow. You don't have to rush anymore. You've actually got better stability doing this. Now, there's one other thing we can do. You can do this by loading your toes back here or not loading your toes. There is no right or wrong, but if I see you overly dependent, grinding your foot into the floor or doing your toes, I'll do them both, okay? Come on back up. In your first drill, laying flat back on the roll, you went through some things and you had some differences. Every day it's gonna be a little bit different. Some days you're gonna be dialed in, some days not. The days you're not dialed in, spend more time there, okay? Go to the breathing drill and just go through that up-down motion. That's gonna have a whole body effect, just not your hip, not your T-spine, the whole integrated thing. When you get to this control drill, it's really easy for people to hold their breath when they're stepping because that's a brace, and we don't need to plank here, we need to flow here. Now, your real confirmation is if you run through this one time on the bedroom floor or at the gym before you work out, when you come back to that move, it's gonna feel better. We're gonna make sure that is, because we're gonna go back to your basically control test and we're gonna retest you real quick. But when we see that improve, this is your program, this is your warm up, this is your cool down, this is your light day thing. Well, I promised you some struggle and I made Lee work through that, but the cool thing is, in the time it took us to shoot this thing, this is how much change happened on his balance. And there's not a lot of convincing to do right now for me to say to him, this is your program and I want you to do it before you leave the house in the morning and before you go to bed at night on a non-workout day, but on a day when you're gonna get after it and try to do something physical and functional, this is your warm-up until we decide it's not. And that's the way this thing starts working. He's becoming aware in every session. And some days he'll be on his game, his balance will be good from the beginning, and some days I'm gonna ask him to dedicate 6 minutes to getting his balance equal so his runs will be better and his golf workout will be better.